I never thought I'd say this, but my greatest pride proved to be my undoing. For years, I believed myself untouchable. A dyed-in-the-wool skeptic, someone who spotted scams a mile off, who scoffed at conspiracy theories, and analyzed every argument with cold, relentless logic. Until the day I realized I was the most obedient puppet in the theater, and the manipulator was the person I admired most. This video isn't a list of tips. It's my story. The story of how my skepticism, my strongest armor, became the crack through which I was completely turned. I'm going to tell you, step by step, how the most sophisticated manipulation strategies don't target your gullibility, but precisely your intelligence and your need to feel smarter than others. Stay until the end, because the last step is where 99% of people fall, even the most astute. Chapter 1: The Trojan Horse of Vulnerability. It all started with an invitation. Not a spam email promising wonders, no. A personal invitation from someone I respected, to join a think tank called The Axiom. The name alone was enough to flatter my ego. We didn't talk about business or wealth, but philosophy, psychology, deconstructing limiting mental models. The dream for a mind like mine that thought itself above the fray. The leader, let's call him Mark, was not a charismatic, exuberant guru. He was a calm, composed, incredibly learned man. During the first session, I arrived with my shields up, ready to dismantle every syllogism. But there were no syllogisms to dismantle. Mark didn't try to convince us. He did something far more powerful. He showed vulnerability. He told a personal story, a crushing failure, a deep self-reassessment that led him to create this circle. He didn't say I have the truth, he said help me seek it with you. My skepticism was disarmed. I was looking for a frontal attack, an argument to counter. He offered me an emotional connection. It was the Trojan horse. By accepting his story, I accepted the man, and unknowingly, I opened the gates of my inner fortress. The skeptic's first mistake is not believing lies, but underestimating the power of an emotional truth. Chapter 2: Top-down validation, the elitist cohort effect. The group was small. About 15 people. Architects, doctors, researchers, lawyers. The local intelligentsia. No one was gullible. Everyone was critical, articulate. And that's where the second mechanism kicked in. When Mark put forward an idea, even one that seemed a little strange to me, I saw these brilliant minds nodding, asking pertinent questions that, instead of challenging the substance, reinforced it. My internal dialogue changed. Instead of that's absurd, I started thinking if they, with their background, see value in it, maybe I'm missing something. It's a form of inverse social proof. It's not the crowd that convinces you, but a carefully selected elite. The skeptic distrusts popular opinion, but is terribly vulnerable to the opinion of a group he perceives as his intellectual equal or superior. My need not to appear stupid in the eyes of my peers was stronger than my initial critical mind. Slowly, I stopped listening to analyze, and started listening to understand how to agree in the smartest possible way. Chapter 3: The Creation of an Exclusive Language. And that's not all, the trap was getting deeper. Soon enough, a jargon specific to the axiom emerged. We no longer spoke of problems, but structural dissonances. We didn't look for solutions, but axiomatic points of convergence. These words had no meaning outside our circle. But inside, they created a bubble, a parallel reality. Using this language was proof of belonging. Criticizing Mark's ideas with words from the outside world was immediately perceived as a misunderstanding. You're still thinking with the old paradigm, they would gently tell me. This technique is devilish for a skeptic, because it turns their weapon against them. Logic and semantics, our favorite tools, are hijacked. Language becomes a barrier that prevents any external criticism from penetrating and validates group members by giving them the impression of possessing secret knowledge. I was proud to master this jargon. I felt initiated, special. I felt like I was seeing the world differently, when in reality, I was looking at the world through an increasingly thick filter, designed by someone else. Chapter 4: The Onset of Cognitive Dissonance. That's when things started to get truly uncomfortable, but subtly. Mark began introducing ideas that clashed with my core values. Nothing radical at first. Just small challenges to family attachment, to the notion of professional loyalty, to the importance of traditional friendship. He presented them not as truths, but as intellectual explorations. My brain sounded the alarm. A small voice said, "This is unhealthy." But another, much louder, said, "I've already invested so much time and energy here. I admire Mark. All these smart people agree. If I reject this, I reject everything else." This is cognitive dissonance. To reduce this unbearable discomfort, I had two choices: either admit I had been wrong from the beginning and leave the group, which was an immense narcissistic wound for the skeptic I was, or, and this is what I did, twist my own logic to justify the unjustifiable. I started telling myself, it's provocative, but it's to make us think. It's an exercise. I rationalized. The most effective manipulation doesn't force you to believe, it leads you to convince yourself. Chapter 5: Isolation disguised as elevation. The next step was isolation. But again, insidiously. Mark never said, "Cut ties with your loved ones." He said, "Surround yourself with people who elevate you, who understand your journey. Energy is precious, don't waste it on those stuck in the old world." Gradually, my longtime friends seemed simple. Their concerns, futile. Their advice, wide of the mark. When I spoke to them with my new jargon, they looked at me with wide eyes. I was no longer understood. And instead of questioning myself, I interpreted their incomprehension as proof of my own evolution. The circle had become my only true family, the only place where I truly felt myself, or rather, the version of myself I thought I should become. The skeptic, who prides himself on his independence of mind, had become completely dependent on the validation of a single group. Isolation was not a punishment, it was a reward, proof of my ascent. It was terrifying, and I saw nothing. Chapter 6: The Escalation of Commitment. You know the foot in the door principle? It's exactly that, but on a psychological level. It all started with weekly meetings. Then a weekend seminar, paid of course, to deepen our understanding. Then we were asked for small contributions to fund the circle's projects. Then to volunteer our time to organize events. Each yes made the next yes easier, and no impossible. To turn back would have meant admitting that all previous commitments were mistakes. This is the sunk cost fallacy. My skeptic's ego was on the line. I couldn't admit I'd been duped. So I continued. I paid. I invested my time, my emotional energy. I was building my own prison, bar by bar, and I thought I was building a temple. The more I gave, the more I had to believe the cause was worth it. My commitment was no longer based on conviction, but on justifying my past commitments. This is the tipping point. You no longer act according to your beliefs, you forge your beliefs to match your actions. Chapter 7: The Illusion of Final Choice and the Awakening. Here's the most important part, the coup de grace. The moment when everything almost tipped for good. Mark presented Project Omega, the culmination of our entire journey. A vague, grandiose project that required total commitment. Not just financial, a considerable sum that would put me in difficulty, but a life commitment. It meant leaving our jobs for some, getting involved full-time. And he presented it not as a demand, but as a choice. You are free, he said. It's your decision. Only those truly ready will take the leap. This is the pinnacle of manipulation. By giving me the illusion of free will, he activated my need to prove my loyalty, my courage, my belonging to the elite. Saying no, at this stage, was no longer a logical option, it was an admission of weakness, a betrayal. My brain was buzzing. I was going to say yes. I had prepared my speech, my justification. I was hours away from doing the irreparable. The trigger came in the most unexpected way. I ran into an old university friend, someone I'd been avoiding for months. He didn't judge me, he didn't criticize me. He just looked at me and asked one simple question: "It's been a long time since I've seen you laugh out loud. Are you happy?" No one in the circle had ever asked me that question. We talked about accomplishment, transcendence, never simple, raw happiness. That question caused a short circuit. It bypassed all linguistic barriers, all intellectual justifications. And the answer was no. I wasn't happy. I was stressed, anxious, under constant pressure to live up to an ideal that wasn't my own. The whole house of cards collapsed in a second. The jargon, the group's validation, the admiration for Mark, everything appeared to me for what it was, a golden cage, built with my own consent. Conclusion: true immunity. I left the circle that night. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I had to face the shame, the feeling of having been foolish, the loss of that community that had become my whole life. But above all, I understood the skeptic's fatal error. We think immunity comes from intelligence, from logic, from the ability to analyze facts. That's wrong. The most skilled manipulators don't attack your logic, they bypass it. They target your ego, your need for belonging, your fear of isolation, your desire to feel special and intelligent. They don't sell you a lie, they lead you to construct it yourself. True immunity isn't about distrusting others. It's about distrusting yourself. It's about being skeptical of your own certainties, your own emotional reactions. It's about questioning what makes us feel good, what flatters our intelligence. It's about accepting that we can be wrong, and that's not a weakness, but the greatest strength. If my story can help you spot even one of these signals, in others or in yourself, then my downfall will not have been in vain. Share with someone who wants to get started. Don't forget to subscribe.